What's up, guys? Bruce Blitz, and I'm doing a video today that a lot of people have been asking me to do for a while, and I'm going to explain hand checking to you. Now, as some of you know, in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, right in there, the NBA decided to curtail hand checking, and basically what it was a freedom of movement initiative. That's what Jay Billis calls it, who covers college sports mainly. And what they did is a lot of people focused on hand checking, but they took out chucking, away from the ball, chucking a guy, wrapping him up, which you'll see in the video that I present on YouTube with the clips that I'm going to show, where let's say Michael Jordan needed to get open away from the ball. You could actually wrap him up. You could wrap him up and try to hold him from getting open away from the ball. The 3-second rule, let's say I'm a center, no longer can you stand in the lane and camp out for longer than 3 seconds. So back in the day, David Robinson, Hakeem, Kareem, Shaq, you name all the big guys, they would camp out in the lane. They would stay close to arm's length away from the guy they're defending. And then Michael Jordan's coming to the rim. They're already there. They're already there. And as you guys know from watching the old footage, some of you, or if you're my age, you remember watching the games, Clyde Drexler, a guy like Michael Jordan, would go to the rim, and the big would jump up and just plaster him. And they would make the point that you're going to come to the rim, we're going to make you pay for it. And it would get in the perimeter player's head, and they wouldn't attack the rim as much. So you can't really do that anymore either, because they call so many ticky-tack flagrant fouls and things of that nature. So the physicality has been taken out. But what I really want to focus on is hand checking, because I saw some youngsters last year who would private message me or whatever. They would say, "Did you see that Lakers game? Kobe was getting hand checked." And I'd write them back, "You don't know what hand checking is." So, for instance, let me describe the way they do it in the NBA now. Offensive perimeter player has the ball, okay? Defender gets in the defensive stance. He might even put his hand out to kind of gauge the distance, all right? They're not pushing on them, but they might get out and touch them. As soon as the offensive ball handler decides to go to the basket, it's hands off. You see this a lot. The offensive player is going to the basket. The defender does this, and the offensive player goes right by him. Even in a double team, neither guy puts physical resistance on him to stop him because they don't want to get called for a foul. Or, let's say the offensive player is driving to his right, which would be my left. Now, pretend I have a wristwatch on my right hand. So I could listen to the wristwatch, it goes to this ear, and it goes to this side. Okay? So the offensive player is dribbling to the basket. They will put their right hand, they will slide with them and put their right hand, the outside of the hand, not the palm, outside, on the hip, and they will ride them on the hip with their hand. This is not hand checking. That's called riding somebody on the hip. Now, what hand checking is, okay, Michael Jordan's era. And these rules apply to the perimeter, not the post. The post is different. Before I get to Michael Jordan's era, in the post, you can defend with the forearm in their back. But you can't push with the forearm anymore. You could back in the day. And back in the day in the post, you saw guys defending the post player with both hands like an offensive lineman. Okay? In Michael's era, and this is basically when I was playing competitive basketball in my education, the way that we were taught and the way you saw NBA players defend was you would get in your defensive stance, one hand on the ball handler, pushing him and detaining him, the other hand up like this to hold balance. It wasn't for the pass lane. It was for balance, and you could use it to defend the pass lane. Okay? So this is hand checking. Now, if the ball handler wants to go to his right, like it just described, yeah, sometimes they would ride him on the hip with the outside of the hand. But what would happen is he goes to his right, my left, I switch hands, and I detain him. Physical detainment. He's got to get through the physical resistance. Okay? And there was a lot of pushing going on. And the same applies to if I'm hand checking him with my left hand, I got my right arm up, he goes to his left, my right, I slide and I detain him. Or if he does a good crossover move, he fakes to his right, goes to his left, I kind of fall this way, I push him into the help defense. I knock him off his path and give the help defenders more time to come over and defend the play. Now, another thing that was used with hand checking was just about all the time you would see guys defending with two hands like an offensive lineman. You will never see that ever again in today's game. Two guys defending, or two hands defending on the ball handler, and the ball handler goes to move this way, I'm already shifting my force to my right hand, I'm sliding my feet, and I'm detaining him. Physical resistance. They took it out of the game. In the NBA rule book, it literally says to free up the perimeter players, to allow them to get to the basket more. That's why they opened up the lane with the 3-second rule. That's why they curtailed hand checking. That's why at the most you're going to ride a guy on the hip. Now remember, I said the opposite hand to which way he's driving goes on the hip. If this hand in today's game goes on his hip and he tries to detain him by actually hand checking him back, it's a foul. Immediate foul. And if you're not an ESPN Sports Center highlight watcher, you watch Kevin Durant, LeBron James, all these guys play, you see them getting called for impeding their progress to the basket all the time. Kobe. Okay? There's a reason why all these point guards and these guards, they're pretty good in college. And let's take a John Wall, let's take a Derrick Rose, for instance, who they had a coach who allowed them to freelance and display their talents. But they come to the pros, and all of a sudden, they're putting up better numbers. Because college is a more physical game. Larry Brown, who coached the Charlotte Bobcats last year, coached the 2004 Detroit Pistons, said that Michael Jordan would average 50 points per game in the game today. He said the college game is much more physical than the pro game. I could name off so many quotes. Joe Dumars said that he would not be able to defend Jordan under these rules. He said it would be virtually impossible. Phil Jackson said Michael would average 45 with these rules. Now obviously they're talking about prime Jordan, not 50-year-old Jordan, not 47-year-old Jordan, prime Jordan. Okay? And I think one of the best quotes that I could give you guys, and I'll leave you with this, all right, is Joe Johnson. Joe Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks, one of the top 5 shooting guards in the NBA right now, said, someone asked him about hand checking, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He said it benefits him, the fact that hand checking is gone. He said the players of the 80s and 90s would have been even better if they got to play under these rules. And he said, could you imagine what Michael Jordan would do? So here's Joe Johnson, an obvious student of the game who understands that these rules have allowed players like him to flourish. Obviously a talented player, Kobe, LeBron, Wade, Durant, they're all talented players. But they're able to showcase their talents more because of the rules changes. And it even applies to shooting the ball on the perimeter. Because, let's say I'm the ball handler, okay? I've got a defender on me. I want to juke right. I'm going to go left. I'm going to do a little step back jump shot. Well, guess what? That move back in the day, that little move to maybe get a little bit closer so you have a mid-range jump shot, I would have still been feeling that physical resistance. At the beginning of the play, I've got a hand on me lodged in my side, so what am I going to do? I'm going to turn my back to him because I'm going to defend the basketball. And you saw more offensive players on the perimeter with their back to the basket like they're in the post. Because with that physical resistance, it's easier to guide him and it's easier to reach underneath and steal the ball. So it changed the game in so many ways.